Boarding School Juliet, or Kishiku Gakko no Julietto if you like water with extra steps. I wanted to talk about this anime because recently me and a friend sat down to watch it, and I, as a person who watched the anime when it aired in 2018, got to relive the series over again, and damn, let me say, it was a ride. I honestly can't believe it's been 4 years since the anime's release. That's crazy to me. I remember running across it amidst all the bangers of the season, and saw that it was a show with a somewhat more modern take of Romeo and Juliet. To be honest, I feel really bad for this anime as it aired in probably one of the worst possible times it could have been. During the fall season of 2018, Juliet kind of got swept under the rug by some of the more heavy hitters of the season. Things like That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Bunny Girl Senpai, as well as Fairy Tail's final season were all things people in the community were discussing, leaving no room for much of anything else. And let's not forget about Arrow manga since what the fuck is this? Look at the anime, now back to me, now look back at the anime, back to me. You see this? This is this, but this isn't nearly as good as this. This is bad art. So back to reviewing. Its horrible release date aside, however, Boarding School Juliet was a really good series, and after watching it again, I decided to break it down for a video. Keep in mind, this is only my opinion of the show and how I felt about it at the time. If you have a different opinion on it, however, or maybe I convinced you to watch it, feel free to drop that in the comments below. I'd love to see more opinions on this anime, because honestly, it didn't get much shit when it was actually released, so... So then, let's begin. Plot-wise, the story is pretty straightforward. If you enjoyed the concept behind Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, chances are you're gonna enjoy what you find here. The overall theme is the same, with sprinkles of Yousuke Kaneda-san's imagination spread across the series. If by some off chance you haven't read Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, I both applaud and pity you in respect to the fact that the premise of Romeo and Juliet is really beautiful and amazing, but no one should ever be subjected to making sense of whatever was in Shakespeare's head in the time of writing it. Romeo and Juliet is the story of two star-crossed lovers that are separated due to the broken bridge that lies between their individual factions. Boarding School Juliet is no different in this regard. After a long war between what is essentially Europe and Japan, the nations of the Principalities of the West and Toa erect a boarding school on an island in between both countries. This is a setting that will act as the main stage throughout the show. The island has pretty much anything a high school couple would ever want. Cafe, shops, an amazing view, and oh, I forgot, it doesn't matter, because they can't fucking be together. Except they kinda can, but can't. Well, disguise, it's weird. All this aside, the country's poured some serious money into this boarding school. It's extremely large, and there's so many really cool places that are shown throughout the anime and the manga, am I right? As for the origins of this boarding school though, I honestly could not begin to explain how it came about. I think the manga had mentioned that the main function of the boarding school was to ease the tension between nations as the upcoming generation would graduate alongside their other nation counterparts. But peace just was never really a part of the equation to the student body, and while I have no idea what the official leaders of these countries were thinking at the time, I can only imagine it went a little something like this.
Sir, the Toans have reached out and are willing to negotiate a peace treaty of some sorts to end this long and grueling war. By the Queen, we can put the bloodshed behind us, but how?
I have an idea.
Go on.
We take the next generation who has grown to hate one another, and we put them in school together.
Good God, how do we stop them from tearing each other apart?
Segregation. No, I'm not even joking. They legit segregated the Toans from the Principality of the West in the classrooms. When you look at all the black jackets on one side of the room and all the white jackets on the other, it's like one big fucked up yin and yang symbol of nationalism. In all seriousness though, the first episode where all this takes place does a pretty good job at establishing a foundation for the rest of the show. The first episode literally starts out with what I can only describe as a national gang war between the students. In the world of Romeo and Juliet, a Montague and a Capulet are made to fight one another and have no chance of getting along. In an almost abrupt sense, Yosuke-san lets you know that this same concept applies to his world at the very beginning of the series. I thought this was a pretty damn good move in setting the stage for the show. Even more so, he uses the first episode to set up the audience's perception of both the main heroine and our protagonist, letting the viewer know their hopes, their dreams, what drives them, which will later become their internal conflict in the show. Romeo, our main protagonist, and biggest simp, is in love with our main heroine Juliet from the very start of the show. Of course you get this vibe, but aren't really sure what to make of it at first. Only you don't have time to think anyway, because prefix are introduced. Prefects are basically like the top students of the school who are basically unrivaled in strength, intellect, or cuteness? I'll let you be the judge of that one. In any case, after the White Cat's prefect is like, "I'ma tellin' your bitch ass if you don't get your raunchy, dirty, shitty booty ass the fuck out of here," Romeo takes down an entire brick pillar. Yes, a pillar. Just so he can vent some stress and scream about how much he loves Juliet. In my opinion, I really like these little corny displays of affection Romeo shows for Juliet in the anime. Anyone who has read this show's Shakespearean counterpart knows that in the story, Romeo has a lot of choice words when describing Juliet. Like, 9 fucking lines worth of words. I personally don't know if this was Yosuke-san's intention when making Romeo as a character, but I do however believe it makes him just a little more true to his Shakespearean counterpart. In Yosuke-san's work, you get the full concept in such a short amount of time. Both Romeo and Juliet have been fighting as rivals since childhood, which eventually led to Romeo's infatuation with her as they grew up. He has in essence come to love Juliet because they fought so much growing up, arguably growing more closer to her throughout their battles. Because their relationship is already pre-established, the audience can focus on the characters' future aspirations, which will later become the main focus of the show, as both Romeo and Juliet struggle to make their dreams a reality. Having both their relationship and their individual aspirations established early on allows for so much to be packed into the first episode to hook the audience for more entertaining features, such as sword fighting, heartfelt confessions, and even every anime favorite, sexual In all seriousness though, you can tell Yosuke Kaneda put a lot of care into his work, and with hardly any difference between the manga source material to the anime adaptation, it honestly amazes me that more people weren't talking about this show when it first popped up. The characters in this anime went through a decent bit of development in my opinion. Sure, like any anime, the show has its fair share of tropes and specific character types, but the main cast of the show is generally well fleshed out despite their relationships being pre-established from the start. More specifically, I think Yosuke-san meant to express something special with Romeo and Juliet's relationship. Something everyday people can sort of relate to, in all honesty. As the main heroine of the series, Juliet hopes to change the oppressive system of the world around her by proving that she's strong enough to live up to the worth of any man. She does this as the only child of an influential noble, one who has no son to inherit the nobility as the times would call for. This is a big goal, and yet, since she was a little girl, she has worked hard to overcome the trials in her way. Interestingly enough though, after one of the most beautiful fight scenes I've seen in anime for a while, Romeo takes her goal into his hands, making it his own as he works toward a world where he and Juliet can openly have a relationship that transcends the hatred between their nations. What makes their development interesting though, in my opinion, isn't the concept of some grand promise, but the struggles that strengthen Romeo and Juliet's resolve to make it work, as well as how they systematically solve these issues. Yosuke-san did a really good job at laying the building blocks for Romeo and Juliet's journey, changing the world being at the end goal of this process. There's a message here, one I think is beautiful in its own way. The message being that to change the world, you have to first start by changing your community. That, or maybe I'm just overthinking it, and it's really not that deep, bro, so calm down, aha! With this being the case, Romeo and Juliet start small, focusing on the influence they already hold in their individual factions, and strengthening that influence so they can gain a positive public outlook. They play the role of leaders, pretending to fight one another to determine which faction is the best, whilst also maintaining a secret relationship that is nearly burdened every day by the people around them. I mean, dude, Juliet literally had to traverse a fucking sewer system to meet with Romeo in secret. I can't imagine anything more fucking gross or grotesque. And so, they help people along the way, maintaining their image while strengthening it through their kind and helpful interactions with others. After gaining popularity, they go on to apply for a prefect position, undergoing harder trials that they were only able to overcome through the help of each other. In a world where their nations are at odds, it isn't easy. These moments present themselves a lot throughout the show, moments where maybe Juliet can't protect Romeo, or vice versa, that cause our two main characters to be reminded of their own helplessness in the face of the hatred that surrounds their world. They can't be by one another's side, they can't change the world if they can't openly work together to even change those around them. Watching Romeo and Juliet question their own helplessness as a result of these kinds of thoughts reminds the audience that there is no one-and-done fix. It's a problem they have to slowly work on over time with experience, strengthening their own resolve to change the world for the other's sake as the series progresses. I think as far as characters go, these two have one of the more beautiful meanings behind them concerning the show, but there are plenty of other characters that have pretty good themes as well. Husky and Princess Char, for example, are the cockblocks of the show, hoping to keep Romeo away from Juliet and vice versa for fear of their reputations sinking. These two characters are a good example of what it means to let someone go. Over the course of the show, they both are constantly denied their feelings toward the one they love. They feel burdened throughout the show, constantly reminded that the love they have pales in comparison to that of Romeo's love for Juliet and vice versa. Because of this, they have to learn to let go, a concept that's pretty relatable to relationships even today. In my opinion, Boarding School Juliet was one hell of a ride. Watching the anime for the first time had me captivated, so much so that I've been keeping up with the manga ever since. For the aforementioned reasons and many more that I haven't discussed in this video, I really recommend it to anyone who might have taken an interest in it. If you did like it or have a differing opinion, feel free to let me know in the comments below. That aside, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next vid. Itterashai!